Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Human Performance Outliers podcast with Zach Bitter. Our final question is, I'm training for the Javelina 100. What workouts specifically matter the most? Okay, so I love the fact that you highlighted a specific event and distance because that's really going to be the driver of this question. Since it's a 100-miler, we want to be thinking in that final stage, that 4 to 6 weeks before taper, you should be focusing primarily on developing the things you're going to be doing on race day. And those things ultimately are going to be the most important workouts for your training plan. If someone told me, hey, I only have 4 to 6 weeks to train for this 100-mile, or my 100 miles in 4 to 6 weeks, what should I do at that time? In almost all cases, I'm going to be telling that person within reason of what you've been doing. Like, you don't want to go from no running up to like big back-to-back long runs. But really, if you're doing no running and you're 4 to 6 weeks out from a 100-miler, you're looking at super suboptimal scenario to begin with. So I'm assuming usually if someone says that, they've got some foundation or some training. They just haven't decided to specifically prepare for this 100-miler yet. But really within that 4 to 6 weeks, those runs that are going to be most specific to race day are going to be the ones that move the needle the most because they're the most specific to what you're doing. They're going to be the most direct in terms of developing you to be able to tolerate that. And they're going to give you the most opportunities to practice what you want to be doing and should be doing on race day, whether that be your fueling, your hydration, your heat management, your pacing, your skeletal muscle, your mechanics, everything that goes into doing what you're doing that day is going to be practiced much more directly by doing the activity at the intensity that you're targeting. So for the Javelina 100, kind of like I said earlier, if you can get some hot long runs in, those are going to be your money shot workouts, your cornerstone workouts for that event, because the Javelina 100 is 100 miles and it's typically quite warm out there. So the better you can kind of prepare for that heat alongside developing that 100-mile intensity back-to-back long run stuff, the better you're likely going to do on race day. And the better prepared you're going to be able to make the right decisions when you're put in a position on race day to make a decision to do one thing or another. I will just add this as a little bit of a bonus for Javelina 100. One of the most underrated things on a race like that one is going to be topical cooling. I've talked about this in some other podcasts before, but when it gets really warm like that and your body temp starts to heat up a little bit, you start to get a little bit dehydrated because there's just no way you're going to stay perfectly hydrated over the course of a full day of running. Bringing that core temp down by just dousing yourself with cold ice water as often as you can is going to make a pretty big difference in you being able to manage that heat and maintain the effort and the focus that is going to be required to meet your goals there. The nice thing about the Javelina 100 is it is structured with some pretty reasonable aid station spacing. They'll have 4 aid stations, with the start finish being the main one, and then 3 more along that roughly 20-mile loop that you do over the course of that day. And I would make it a priority in your planning when you go through every one of those aid stations, just to douse yourself with ice water as much as you can and make that part of your strategy, and practice in your long runs if you have the opportunity. If you have a chance to just say pull up to a trailhead or a loop similar to the course at Javelina on a warm day and do some running, come back to that, pop open a cooler and dump some ice water or something, just experience how much of a difference that can make. That's going to be helpful too. And I know that's not technically a workout, but it's something that you can embed into the key workout sessions that you're doing to better understand how you're going to feel and what you want to do on race day itself. All right, folks, thanks for submitting those questions. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to address on the podcast, you can reach me at hpopodcast@gmail.com or shoot me a message on social media. Instagram is @ZachBitter, Twitter's @ZBitter, Facebook @ZBitterEndurance. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Human Performance Outliers podcast with Zach Bitter.